In pretty much any negotiation, getting to yes feels like you've crossed the finish line, right? But what if it isn't? What if that's just the beginning? Today, we're digging into how you make sure a deal actually gets done, using the incredible lessons from Chapter 8 of former FBI negotiator Chris Voss's book, Never Split the Difference.
So let me just start with a question that kind of flips everything we think about negotiation completely on its head. We fight so hard to get that yes, but what if that's not the real win? What if the real challenge, the hard part, actually starts after everyone has agreed?
To see what I mean, we're going to start with a story, a really high-stakes prison siege where a perfect plan was on the table. Everybody agreed. Everybody said yes. And you're about to see how that yes turned out to mean absolutely nothing.
Okay, so picture this, a totally chaotic prison siege down in Louisiana. A bunch of inmates, pretty disorganized but definitely armed, have taken the warden hostage. But the negotiators on the outside, they're getting a vibe. They can tell these guys don't really want violence. They're just scared and looking for a safe way to end this.
So the negotiators come up with this really elegant, simple plan. One inmate gets to walk out first, past all 3 police perimeters. He gets into the transport vehicle, and then, and this is the key part, he uses a walkie-talkie to radio back to his buddies that it's all clear. It was a genius way to build trust and prove it was safe to surrender.
But it all falls apart at the very last second. The first inmate, he makes it all the way through, just like planned. But right as he's about to grab that walkie-talkie, an officer who wasn't briefed on the plan sees it and just takes it away from him. Standard procedure, right? Well, back inside, the inmates see this and they freak out. They think their friend has been double-crossed, maybe he's being beaten. The whole deal almost explodes, all because of one tiny, overlooked detail in the execution.
And that story, right there, is the perfect setup for why we need a tool that guarantees not just agreement, but actual implementation. And this brings us right to the heart of Chris Voss's strategy for making things happen, the incredible power of one simple word: how.
Voss's whole argument is this: a yes is totally worthless if you don't have a how. Think about it. You don't make money when a contract is signed. You make money when the invoice gets paid. Success isn't the deal itself. It's the hostage actually walking free, the product actually being delivered, the plan being executed without a hitch. And the key to getting there is what Voss calls calibrated how questions. Now, these are not accusations like, how could you possibly do that? No. They're gentle, they're collaborative, they're designed to make the other person stop and actually think through the practical steps of turning their yes into a reality.
Just look at how a tiny shift in your language can completely change the game. Saying, no, I can't do that, just shuts the door. It's a dead end. But asking, how am I supposed to do that? Well, that invites them to solve your problem. It's this incredibly graceful way of saying no that makes them work with you to find a solution. And usually, it's the solution you wanted all along.
Okay, let's take this into an even higher stakes scenario, a real life or death case study. An American guy named Jose gets kidnapped by rebels in Ecuador. They demand a completely impossible ransom, $5 million. So Voss's team decides they're going to build their entire strategy around these how questions.
So, Jose's wife, Julie, becomes the point person on the phone. And instead of arguing or pleading or getting emotional, she just keeps calmly asking these calibrated questions. Every single demand they make is met with a how. This isn't about being defiant. It's about forcing the kidnappers to face the logistical nightmare of their own demands.
And the effect was just incredible. These questions slowed everything way down. The guy on the phone for the kidnappers had to keep going back to his bosses to figure out the answers, which started causing arguments and chaos within their group. And all of that confusion and delay, it created the perfect window of opportunity for Jose to actually escape on his own. The how questions didn't just buy time, they completely changed the entire environment of the negotiation.
This whole idea leads us to something even bigger. It's not just about the person you're talking to. A lot of the time, the real people who can kill your deal, they aren't even in the room.
Voss calls these people the behind-the-table players. Just think back for a second. The prison guard who took the walkie-talkie, or the other rebels in the kidnappers' camp who were getting frustrated. In any deal you make, you have to account for these hidden influencers who have the power to approve your deal or, more importantly, to completely blow it up.
So, how in the world do you find them? Well, you ask. Questions like these gently force the person you're talking to think about and hopefully reveal the concerns of their team, their boss, their spouse, whoever. This isn't just about gathering intel, it's about preventing that last-minute ambush from a player you never even saw coming.
Okay, so you've thought about the hidden players, you've used your how questions, and you finally got a yes. Great. But how do you know it's a real yes? How can you be sure it's a genuine commitment and not just something they're saying to get you off their back?
Voss warns us that not all yeses are created equal, and this is so important. There's the counterfeit yes. That's just an escape route. Then there's the confirmation yes. Just a simple yep to a basic question. But the one you're hunting for, the one that actually matters, is the commitment yes. That's the only one that actually leads to action, and your job is to figure out which one you're hearing.
So how do you lock in a real commitment? You use what Voss calls the rule of 3. The goal is to get them to agree to the same thing 3 different times in the same conversation. First, you get that initial yes to the deal. Second, you summarize their position back to them to get a that's right, which is way more powerful than yes. And finally, you hit them with a calibrated how question about what happens next. It is incredibly hard for someone to fake that level of commitment 3 times.
And you have to remember, it's not just about the words they're using. According to the famous 7-38-55 rule, the words themselves are actually the least important part of communication. You have to listen to their tone of voice. You have to watch their body language. If you hear them say yes, but their voice sounds hesitant or their shoulders are slumped, that is a massive red flag that their commitment isn't real.
So, when you put all of these tools together, what's the big idea? What's the philosophy? It's about realizing that negotiation isn't this big, aggressive fight to be won. It's more like the art of skillfully guiding a conversation so that the outcome you want just becomes the natural, logical conclusion.
I mean, this quote just says it all, doesn't it? It perfectly captures the whole spirit of this approach. When you use these calibrated how questions and focus on implementation, you make the other person feel like they are the one in control. You make the solution feel like it was their brilliant idea. And when people feel ownership over an idea, they will work so much harder to make it a reality.
The real takeaway from all of this is that getting to yes is just the starting line. The true mastery is making sure that yes actually turns into reality. So the tools are all here for you. The only question left is, in your very next negotiation, how are you going to let them have your way?